Hey, it still makes more sense than the catchphrases from the other show you're in, dude. Continuing right from the last episode, just as Tachibana had come down from his heavenly kotatsu to consult the royal princes of Atlantia, he proceeded to recreate, I think, the tale of the honest woodcutter with them, where the title character lost his axe, and was then asked by a spirit if he had lost a silver or gold axe, which were neither of his. Thus, he answered honestly, and got back his original axe, along with the silver and gold axes, as a reward for being honest. In this case, Yaiba was offered a melon, or melon bread, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure one is a lot more valuable than the other, plus he didn't, lose any fruits or anything. Regardless, he too answered neither, so he was rewarded with a new card. Again, I'm pretty sure the gods y'all keep talking about are the Bandai execs. Though, before anything else, Gardos interrupted to both inform his king that Hakua had been freed, and that he did have an actual meeting with some droid manufacturers he needed to attend. The latter might have seemed like a superfluous point, but it did highlight that for all of his shady and underhanded tactics, Yaiba was still a responsible king who was trying to maintain the economy of his kingdom. Sure, it doesn't excuse all of his actions, but it does justify why the general populace did accept his rule. And for Tsurugi, he did need to keep these thoughts in mind, as if they were to dethrone Yaiba, well, then who is going to take his place and properly run the kingdom? Again, it's all part of the show's theme that in spite of them literally being called the Eyes of Light and Darkness, there was also a whole lot of gray area to all of this, so good stuff. However, if all of that economy talk was a little too real these days, this show quickly reminded us that it was a fantasy, as Kizakura read from a newspaper. Okay, so not everything is fantasy, but yeah, according to it, all sorts of natural disasters for this world were occurring. Team Ruby paid them a visit, didn't they? And no offense to Ice Queendom, I think this is actually a bit of an underrated show. Okay, but seriously, it wasn't them, or even this show's version of global warming, for the most part, but something from the Aurora Borealis.
Aurora Borealis!
It was somehow causing the volcanoes on Atlantia to react, resulting in a negative chain reaction across the land. Obviously, a lot of crap was going on around our heroes, including Gardos' machinations, so Gordy offered to scope things out for them. And fortunately, he and Tsurugi weren't the only Eyes of Darkness supporting them, as Amrel was also working both sides.
Everybody got that? Good!
On that note, back with Tsurugi, he actually requested to be able to sit in on their next meeting to learn how his brother ran their kingdom. Yep, not only did he want to learn more about Yaiba, but he was also possibly doing a little prep in case they really would need to take over when all was said and done. Yaiba agreed, and to further flex his kingship, he challenged Tachibana to a fight with the new card he had just gotten from him. I mean, you could still lose if you end up breaking really badly, dude. For this battle, Tachibana changed things up and didn't use an exact copy of any one character's deck, but more of a blend of 3 similar decks. Specifically, ones belonging to the 3 red deck users from Battle Spirit's Heroes, the series that aired before this one. As a result, this was probably his strongest deck from a pure versatility standpoint, and didn't use any particularly outdated cards. In fact, some of them, as we'd soon see, hadn't aged a day. But yeah, Heroes was a season centered around 2 major themes: Japanese folklore with spirits based on characters like Momotaro and Kintaro, and a new game mechanic that was introduced that season, but hadn't really appeared in this one until now. Bursts are basically like trap cards in Yu-Gi-Oh!, in which they're placed face down on the field and can be activated if certain conditions are fulfilled. And during Sword Eye's run, I don't think any new burst cards were introduced. This was likely due to them wanting to place more emphasis on the new game mechanics, as many TCG tend to do, and the fact that they had already introduced a lot of good cards, so they didn't really need to add to the pile. For instance, there was the first burst Tachibana used.
Oh, good. Why, that's very good. Yes, I like that.
Yeah, needless to say, this card was pretty damn popular, as it basically gave a player a negate attack plus a free core. I mean, just to put in perspective, pretty much every main character in Heroes used it. At the same time, Gardos kept using his brainwashing powers, this time on Rebel. Rivori ended up stumbling upon this, and of course he'd be into it, though interestingly, Gardos revealed that he had also taught how to use such powers to Yaiba, but he hadn't used them. This did seem to confirm that the king wouldn't use underhanded tactics directly, though he certainly wasn't stopping his underlings from using them, but hey, at least he has some standards, I guess. Besides, he was interested in much grander power. A power from the Sword of Judgment that he seemingly wanted to use to prevent a cataclysm that not even the messengers of God like Tachibana knew of. Pretty sure it's some creepy guy who sits in front of a big door all day. Anyway, another great source of power came from the card he had just acquired. As the true ace of the rival character of the show, the Darkness Griffin just had a ton of very strong effects. For starters, it could immediately bounce 2 spirits after it was summoned. Next, if it was braved, it could stand itself once per turn, so basically it gave it like 2 attacks per turn. And last with its rush effect, it could send 2 cores on a spirit to the trash, which could either weaken or destroy it if it's depleted. Needless to say, it wasn't a friendly chicken. However, Tachibana had his own ace. Yep, spirits could also be burst, and back in the day, Seek Yamato Freed was one of the strongest. As not only could be summoned for free just by taking some damage, but it could also instantly destroy one opposing spirit upon hitting the field. Then during battle, if a burst was set, it could destroy a weaker spirit and then target one for battle. So yeah, it basically had the effects of Tsurugi's Dark Tyrannosaura without the need of its corresponding Brave and could be summoned much easier. Thus, not surprisingly, this card saw a lot of play IRL to the point that it had to be limited to 1 per deck even long after Heroes finished airing. Nowadays, the limit has been lifted, but again, it's meant to show that Tachibana was at his strongest in this battle. In the end though, and while he had actually played very solidly, Yaiba won thanks to the Darkness Griffin's pre-broken effects, plus a spell that actually countered bursts. For clarification, this card was always in Yaiba's starter deck, likely so that newcomers to the game could counter the prevalent bursts at the time and balance out the meta a little more. So yeah, it wasn't just an overly plot convenient spell. With that though, Yaiba won, and as his reward, Tachibana agreed to deliver his message to the gods. You know, this guy can be a bit of an asshole, but credit where it's due, that was pretty awesome. And the episode ended with Tsurugi asking if he could see their mother again, who of course was moving her own plans into action, as she explained to Amarello where she got those powers from the last episode. As an episode that was mostly just a battle, at least it was a really good battle, plus they also managed to incorporate some good world building. Yeah, amongst all of his anti-god talks, Yaiba also managed to hint at some of the bigger story elements of the show, alongside everyone else starting to notice the inconvenient truths occurring on around them. This is also another good callback episode, as they did actually bring back some fan-favorite cards from the previous season, only to have them soundly trumped. As much of a tyrant as he was, this episode was a good reminder that, to his credit, Yaiba was running an economically successful and stable nation. Part of it was because he was so ruthless and dead set on making sure that his people were self-sufficient. Hence his whole screw the gods declaration, and the likely reason why he didn't use the dark arts that Gartos had taught him, as he did believe that it prevented them from finding their own paths that he did want to help them lead them towards. He of course also wanted to prevent the gods' other machinations that were affecting the world. Without spoiling too much, it was a classic fantasy setup where the characters were trying to prevent a cataclysmic disaster by any means necessary in Yaiba's case. It's good lore and world building that keeps the show intriguing in spite of Tachibana being a rather goofy apostle of the Lord. On that note though, he had a great battle with Yaiba, as it was actually a really close match, with him using old but still very playable cards at the time. Again, Yamato was a rightfully limited card at the time, and Yaiba only really won thanks to his starter deck being partially anti-burst, and the fact that they had to push the new card. Still overall, this was a very good episode for fleshing out his character and the general lore of the show. While he wasn't being gods just yet, the fact he beat an OP card was certainly impressive. Now, if only other TCGs could do the same. This review, as well as all of our other usual Wednesday reviews, will now be going up a day early just to make room for our new show that we're going to be reviewing for this season. In fact, by the time you see this, we'll likely be writing up our thoughts on the Magical Girl and Evil Lieutenant, which seems like it's going to be a fun little parody of several genres that I'm a huge fan of, between Mahou Shoujo and Tokusatsu. Look forward to it. Until then, though, for now, my friends, oh, shoot, I dropped my pen and...
Did you lose a golden axe? Or was it a silver axe?
I don't know why you would think I would drop either of those things, as they sound incredibly impractical, and you know what, you can keep the pen, I've got plenty more over here.